fishtailing, and at Donner's Pass, it's over 2,000 feet straight down, and this particular part where I was at, and Jesus absolutely appeared in my jump seat, as well as concrete as I am sitting here next to my son as I'm taking him to work. And the Lord spoke to me and told me, it says, I have told you to do my work, to preach my gospel. It says, and this is how serious I am. And so I pulled off to the side of the road, and I got out, and I fell on my face before the Lord right there and probably 4 feet of snow. And thank God, for not taking me out. And so I went over into Sacramento there, and I stopped at the Flying J, and I started preaching the gospel. I started singing, first of all, Amazing Grace over the radio, over the CD, and of course I got flack from the naysayers, and I said, well, if anybody wants, I said, I'm in a white truck, a CTI truck, back in the back corner here. Bring your guitar. If you have one, whatever instruments you got, bring yourself and come on back, and we're going to have church. And by the time it was done, we started singing and things and started going on, and by the time it was finished, 120 truck drivers were there, and I would say probably 2/3 of that 120. I don't really know the exact amount. It's irrelevant, but they gave their lives to God, and I didn't. They wanted to be baptized, and I didn't have anything to dunk them in. So all I have is a 5-gallon bucket. So I said, okay, well, I said we're gonna do the baptism a little bit different. I said we're just gonna take, and I'm gonna take you and dunk your head in the. That's what I asked God, and He said dunk your head in a 5-gallon bucket. So that's what I did. I dunked their head in a 5-gallon bucket, and that was part of it. And then later on, I just I went to that run, and everything was great, and I was all pumped up and stuff. And I came back, and they asked me to be a trainer. And so I took out my first, it was a substantial raise to be a trainer, so I took out my first trainee, and we were going to Los Angeles, and while we were going there, I was feeling just fine and stuff, and like I said, this was probably a month and a half down the road. And while we were going there, everything seemed to be going fine. I really wasn't doing anything wrong. I just wasn't doing what God wanted me to do. I wasn't preaching the gospel. I wasn't trying to spread the gospel. I wasn't being forward. I wasn't being, when I say forward, I wasn't, being the evangelist that God wanted me to be, and it called me into at that time. And I fell sick by the time we got to California. And when I'm telling you I fell sick, I'm telling you that I started out with 103 temperature. The man that I was training used to drive a long time ago, but the CDL laws or DOT laws say that after you haven't driven for so long, you got to go through the whole process again. So he was going through it, and even though he had already drove, I was so sick that I could not even stay awake. I couldn't drink nothing. I couldn't eat nothing. And we were 3 days away. We were 36 hours away, from my home. And this man stayed awake. Okay, I'll never forget his name. His name is John. Oh, I forgot his name. John Presley. president, John Presley, and he stayed up for 3 days and drove the whole way back to get me into the terminal, and they airlifted me from the terminal to the hospital in Springfield, Missouri, to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, I had a temperature that was the second highest that was ever recorded, 107.2. And they immediately took me in and they put me in this big old the whirlpool pump full of ice. And they left me in that ice until I was almost hypothermic as far as the outer part goes. And they brought me out and they put me in this silver-looking blanket. And then when I warmed up a little bit, they pushed me back in the tank and they brought it down. And they had told my wife, they said, if he comes out of this, you know, they just chances, you know, that he might have brain damage. And, you know, and of course Jamie would say, well, you know, that's not any different than what he is now. So now I understand where he's at. But anyway, what the thing was is I was diagnosed through all of this after I got through the pneumonia. They did respiratory things, and they said that I had 4% of one lung, and the other lung was gone, that I was in the last stage. They immediately put me on oxygen, and I was in the last stages of emphysema, and they gave me 6 months to live, if that. And so after I got out of the hospital and I went home, I laid in my bed to die. I said, okay, Lord, I'm ready to go home, you know. And I was sitting here, you know, and the 6 months went by and I'm still laying in the bed. 8 months go by and I'm still laying in the bed. And the Lord came to me in a dream and he said, are you tired of laying in the bed? I said, yep. He said, well, get up. And I woke up and I got up out of bed and I started walking and stuff and started getting myself motivated. And by this time I was almost 400 pounds. And I started walking because they were feeding me so much steroids, you know, the prednisone, that I didn't really have anything that was going to be, you know, I didn't really have anything else, you know, to help me. And so this was, by the time this was going on, my wife at that time left me, took all the money, didn't pay any of the drivers this whole time I was in the hospital, so I lost everything that I had. I lost my trucks. I was sued for everything that I had. They took the house. My ex-wife, now, she took the car. She took the money out of the bank, you know, and then they froze my accounts, you know, and so to make a long story short, I lost everything, and I ended up having to go back to my sister and brother-in-laws. So, granted now, see, I'm still supposed to be dying, okay? And here it is 2 years later, I'm still not dead, you know? I'm still on 2 liters of oxygen. I'm over 470 pounds, almost 500 pounds now. And I'm sitting here, and the only place that they had of my sister's was in the garage. So I stayed in the garage. In a bed, I got to come in and eat, and you know, I'd come inside, you know, but my bed was in the garage. And I did this for 3.5 years. For another 3.5 years. And I'm like, God, you know, there's got to be more to what I am and who I am than what this is. And I started seeking God's face, and I started asking God for help and to help me through all these things. And I started reading His Word. I started getting back into, and He started giving me revelation after revelation after revelation of things that are happening and things that were going on. And so through all this is when the Lord spoke to me and told me that someone was going to be calling me, and that I am to listen to what they're saying, because this is where He wants me to go. So a friend of mine calls me, Jeff Pyatt, And he says, listen, I got this friend of mine, and my sister used to work for him, Rosie, up here in upstate New York. He said, I think that would be a good place for you. He's needing help in the ministry, and I think that, you going up there would be a good thing, and so I gave him a call, and Sonny happened to be in Ohio, going to be coming down and to Kentucky to deliver a load in Shelbyville, which was only about 12 miles from my home, where I was living in Frankfurt. And I said, okay. So he said, why don't you come up for the weekend and check it out and see what you think, and then we'll talk about what we want to do and blah, 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 and see what the Lord tells you. So I agreed, and I went with him. I met with him, and I spent the next 3 weeks, instead of a weekend, in the truck with him, because he couldn't get a run going back up home until then, So this whole time, granted, I'm still on 2 liters of oxygen. I barely can be able to walk. I can barely get in and out of the truck. I can barely even, without having to stop and rest, and the night before Sonny came and picked me up, the Lord came to me in a dream and said that I'm sending you when you go up here. It says you're going to meet a helpmate that's going to help you in the ministry. And you're going to know this person. Didn't tell me who it was, whether it was a woman or a man. And it says you're going to know who they are, that when you shake their hand, a blue flame is going to come from your hand into theirs. And a yellow flame from their hand is going to come from theirs onto yours. And that's how you're going to know, and they're going to see the same thing. And that's the confirmation. So when I came up and I came up here, I shook everybody's hand. My wife Audrey came in with an exchange student that she had from the Netherlands, and when Audrey shook my hand, sure enough, the blue flame came from mine onto hers, and the yellow flame came from hers onto mine. And Audrey took her hand back real quick and said, "Did you see that?" I said, "See what?" She said, "A blue flame came from your hand onto mine, and the yellow flame came from mine onto yours." She said, "That was freaky." And I said, "Okay, Lord." I said, "So what does this mean?" So regardless, nevertheless, how it ends up, we got married, and we've been married for 10 years. But during this process, Audrey said, God, Audrey told me that the Lord gave her a vision and said that her new husband was going to be coming up, and understand that she is married, to her ex-husband. And she goes, "But I'm married, Lord, why are you doing this?" And I'm sure now there's a lot of people saying, "Well, God wouldn't say that." But the thing of it is he was not a godly man, and I can go into detail, but I really don't want to put that over the air. But anyway, the night before he left, he tried to kill her. And he absolutely, literally tried to kill her, tried to choke her to death. He put something into her mouth and tried to kill her. And he was escorted off of the property, and they got a divorce. So anyway, during this time, Audrey said, God, I understand you want me to marry this man, but I don't want a man that's dying. He's on oxygen. You're going to have to heal him. If you want me to be with him, I want a man that's going to be with me in the ministry and blah, 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 blah. And so this particular Sunday when we went to church, I hadn't played guitar or sang or anything for years upon years upon years. Probably 15 years. I just put down the guitar. I said, I'm done with it. And I had mentioned that I play and sing. And they said, well, we know you sing and play guitar.